Yeah, boy! Welcome everyone to another episode of the Mere Mortals Meanderings. Meander. We've got Kyrin here.
Got Juan on the other side.
One on the other side of the mic. And we go out every, roughly Sunday, every weekend I would say, out to the park to philosophize in the park, to have a deep conversation with a lighthearted touch. Wani, how are you doing?
Welcome on.
You got how are you feeling? Because we actually had a boostergram coming in. You'll see it from last week of Peter.
Yep.
Noticing that I still sounded a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I'm on the final stages. You would not. I probably lost, I reckon, half a litre of liquid out of my nose yesterday morning.
Damn, really?
I went through a full box of tissues and it just kept coming out, man.
Wow.
It was and it was just that real watery.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling back to full health, I would say, maybe 95% health.
Okay.
However,
nice.
I did have a little bit of liquid coming out of my nose this morning, but it was black. It was black this morning. Can you guess why?
You drank coffee and sneezed whilst drinking it.
Oh, that's a good guess. No, this weekend I actually have been sanding. Sanding a deck.
Okay.
Specifically, 33 square meters of decking, including railings as well. And that's with a full big machine, like the big old fuck-off machines, handheld type of things that just drag you forward, as well as some hand sanding stuff. And I guess I bring it up, one, because yes, all this sanding stuff, all the powder of the deck gets in your nose and pretty much every orifice and all the clothing. So folks, be more lights out there. If you're planning on sanding, wear some clothes that are going to get wrecked, because I wore last weekend I actually did some sanding as well, and I was wearing some shorts that I just enjoy wearing, them yellow ones, my soft ones. No, not really realizing it, dude, they got dusty as all hell. But the particular thing that I actually found from doing this manual labor, I guess, because I was sanding for give or take about 4 hours, right?
Okay.
And I think generally I do stick still to this mindset that if the manual task or the labor can be done by somebody else and it costs, you can pay somebody else to go do it while you go do something else for those 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's probably better to go pay somebody and then use those 4 hours in a productive
specialization, way. They'll do it more productively than you will. More
productively,
as well.
In a better way. You can go do something else. You could potentially go and earn some more money. And here comes the critical piece. It's you can go be earning some other money. I think it's that conversation of the mindset of well, yes, if you pay someone to do it, your time per hour is $200, $400, $1,000, $2,000, really good, maybe $100,000 per hour. So why would you be doing that? So I had that mindset, I guess, many years ago, and I would agree with it. I still agree with it now. However, I did find that sanding in particular, at least in the space that I was in, there was people around who were helping to sand. I was just having a chat. I actually enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed the manual labor that came with sanding. Now, it stuck to me in my mind that not everything, does that mean that now every manual labor I think would be equivalent to doing that?
No. For hire.
Because it made me think. I remember laying down tiles with my family back in the day, and I don't think I would want to redo that again. I wouldn't want to do it myself, even if it's cost savings. I don't find that enjoyable. But for some reason, the sanding was, I'm not going to say therapeutic, but it was easy, and it was kind of fun. It was nice to have some music around. It's not hard to do. It's just time-consuming, but time-consuming in the way that you can speak to other people, listen to music, listen to a podcast if you want. Hell, go listen to the Immortals podcast while you're doing some sanding.
Should have been doing
that.
But
what it stuck to me in my mind, I went, you know what? I could probably redo some sanding another time, another manual task, and perhaps it would have been a better cost basis if I paid someone to do it overall. Perhaps for time that I wasted or time that I utilized to do so. But I went, actually, in this case, it was okay. It was actually probably fun to do that, as opposed to thinking about it purely in the terms of my efficiency or my effectiveness.
Yeah, for sure.
So it kind of struck to me that, at least as a little learning on the week, I went, maybe I won't look at everything like that as that effectiveness level. And perhaps that's probably another part of me, another side or aspect that I'm starting to see, where I'm starting to move away from the eternal growth. Growth for growth's sake, or doing something for the fact that on an hourly basis I can go and produce another podcast, produce another piece of content.
That over-analyzing.
Yeah, where that one was more of a, if you like to think about it, I almost compared it to a gym session where I just I switched off. I wasn't really thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about the podcast. I wasn't thinking about what I've got to plan and whatnot. It was just more a defocus. I was focusing on very specific piece, how am I sanding this piece? How can I make it good? Listening to music, chatting. And the day went, quite fine. Had the barbecue in the afternoon, and I went, you know what? That was a really enjoyable day. It almost felt a little bit like Zen, because I just wasn't thinking about other things. that was really cool. So, little learning from me. I think if you want to be more zen, go and do some sanding, or perhaps find some manual labor that you might just find you enjoy yourself with.
Yeah, the comparison to zen, I think, is pretty apt. I've noticed similar things for myself. So, here's like a little fun backstory to me, which probably even you don't know too much about. When I was growing up, my dad was super go-getter, and like his passion, like he tried a bunch of things, and what he found that he was good at, or at least making some money at, was property development, and so and managing properties and things like that. And so whenever he would do that, especially as my brother were growing up, he would come out and he would get us to help out. So we would rake places, we would clean up apartments, we would paint places, we would do trips to the dump, getting rid of crap. I still remember one, and he would always try and make it like a teaching thing as well. So there was a grate, and I remember this every time I walk past it. There's a grate in the middle of the long driveway, and to get it out, it's really hard. Like, you'd have to get your fingers in, and it probably weighs itself 15 kilos, 20 kilos, and if it's got dirt packed in and stuff, it's really, really hard to get out. And I remember him trying to teach me once, like, okay, Kyrin, how can you do this, son? How could you get this out? And I was maybe 14 or 15, and I gave up. I tried to pull it myself, couldn't do it, and
did you guys use a lever?
Yeah. So it ended up, well, I gave up, and then he's like, look, what you need to do is you put a rope through it, tie it, and put it in on one edge, one corner. Lift it up, and then that you only need to apply 20 kilos of upward force, which your legs can do easily, and then you take it off. So stuff like that. And yeah, even in the last 4 years, man, I've painted their house. I've chopped down probably the equivalent amount of branches as one of the trees in front of us,
which is probably roughly, like, I'm going to say, a volume of about 30 cubic meters? No, 10 cubic meters. I'd say 10 cubic meters of, like, tree, I guess.
Yeah, I think it ended up being 3 big trailerfuls of tree branches, with me squashing them down as well. What else? Painted one of the townhouses. I used to, every year or so, would also, water blast the driveway and things like that. There is something to the Zen bit, but I think to add to that, it has to be infrequent. I could never...
Correct, yeah, it has to be infrequent.
I could never do painting as a full-time job and be satisfied with that.
Yeah,
nor
actually,
water blasting, nor cutting down trees.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
It has to be once every once in
a while, but not all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, that's probably a really key insight. Similarly, I think that I would not be saying the same if I was like, I've been standing for the last year. I'd be like, okay, no, this is different now. Because I guess it's the acute learning that you might get 1 or 2 sessions, and then you got to pull back.
Yeah.
One of the other things I actually found so I don't know if you've ever used a hand sander, like a proper bigger sander. Now, I'm assuming there's probably different sizes to these things. Sure. This one in particular was around the size of a mower, and it's smaller than a mower, and you can rent them out from Bunnings. Roughly, how much do you think that thing would weigh?
Oh,
it's a little bit smaller than a mower.
Yeah, 20 kilos. 25?
I would have thought the same. I would have thought, dude, this thing's like 50 kilos.
Dang.
So to get
just
them
needs
into
the weight
a car,
to push it down, I guess.
Yeah, so to get them into a car to move them around, there was, one of the learnings that I had in myself, it was like, okay, well, I always think, I'm like, oh, I can lift pretty heavy weight.
Yeah,
dude, when I was carrying the thing into the car, I didn't actually know the first where to properly grapple with it and hold it.
Yeah.
And I was holding it from like the sander itself and about to get my fingers chopped and stuff. And I was like, what is going on?
Deadlifting like a 50-kilo knife.
Yeah, so it ended up like I had to think through to how I picked this thing up and put it on properly, which it actually has a handle, folks. It actually has a handle, which I didn't notice until like way later. I'm like, oh my god. But in all of these things, also when you slide in the sandpaper into the drum, we actually had this occurrence where 2 of the drums went in super simple. When you actually look at a video of how to insert a sander belt in and out, it's like, oh, just pull it, slide it on through. It should be nice and soft. And we did that twice, but another 2 times, it wasn't like that. In fact, it was like, I was pressing it as hard as possible. You had to cut the thing off it. Like, you had to chop it down, Stanley knife, cutting it through to peel it off. And there was a bit of learning there of like, sometimes, like, it was the exact same sandpaper, but when done just right, like done with nice meticulous, it was slipped right in, slipped right out. Otherwise, you just have this drama if you try to like really push it in. So, there's aspects of that you can broaden it and be like, once you see something in a particular way, you see it in all ways of life. But, I've now done this ending. I have now learned those particular lessons in that scenario. I don't think I need to go insane for the next 2 months. So that's okay. So acute learnings is great in those particular perspectives, and it's okay to do them once in a while. Maybe not fantastic though if you're doing it all the time. I'm fine to leave it there and then go learn somewhere else. So.
Agreed, 100%, man. All right. Well, one of my things that popped up this week was if you've checked out the book reviews channel, you'll see I released the Bitcoin Standard. So I had been meaning to read this book for ages. Had a little bit of trouble getting it from the library. It seemed to be a very popular book. People were renting it out, which is good news, I suppose, for BTC. And BTC. I won't go over the learnings from that, but basically it sort of was a very positive of the Austrian school of economics, which is look, I don't know enough about it, to be honest, to really explain it, but it made some like really good points and was also coming out with like a lot of detractions for the Keynesian economics view, which is more the reason that we got out of the reason the Americans got out of the Great Depression in the 20s/early 30s was they printed money, and it's this sort of like circular theory of economics, which is it's more about the velocity of money. It's more doesn't really matter so much how much there is and the diluting factor. It's more about how it's getting passed around. And my dad's more, he grew up with that point of view, and so I'm coming fresh into like economics just as a whole. And so I was like, oh, Dad, this book made these points, and like I wanted to get your thoughts on this. And so essentially it was going to be, the big down debate showdown. Who's going to win, the Austrian school or the Keynesian school? And so one of the things that Dad said right at the start was, okay, so what does the book say? And then I just had a total deer in the headlights moment. Was like I'm so bad. I feel if I have to explain a really broad concept or something I've just learned and repeat it back in a sort of coherent manner.
Yeah, I found that too.
And it wasn't until we got maybe, 10 minutes. I said something, but it wouldn't have convinced anyone ever.
Yeah, it wasn't like an eloquent way to describe it.
And it wasn't until we got into particular points, and then we started talking about, some monies are inferior to others, and some people, like the Europeans, they could produce glass beads really easily. The Africans had glass beads and were using that as money. And so then, of course, the Europeans just came through with all this cheap shit that they've essentially created and extracted a ton of value from the Africans without the Africans like really knowing, they've just sort of created this money easily because they can do
it's
that.
Almost like when an equivalent example there would be like if they're using money and you bring like monopoly money and being like, but this is actual money, and then taking all their money.
But without the aspect of there being a difference. It's
exactly like they created it being the same.
They created the same thing. They just had access to it. And so it wasn't until we were drilling down on more points like that where I could start saying, oh, the book said this, the book said that. Doesn't this refute this, etc., etc. I was just wondering, are there anything? It sounded like you're the same, where if you've got a broad topic you're trying to explain or relate to someone, and they just say, okay, tell me about it, and then it's just kind of, well, where do I start?
Yeah, I find the difficulty, because I found this slightly back a few weeks ago when I was explaining to my family the whole principle of Bitcoin and NFTs and Ethereum and where I struggled to try to really simplify what it was, what it meant. And I guess one of the reasons I want to go down the path of trying to explain more Web3 is basically for that reason of, I think it's an important concept. I think that it's still relatively unknown for many people. But once again, if I had to really try to dissect down the summary of it, or something like reading that book or some other example, and try to reshare that or try to educate other people, I would struggle right now because I just don't know the concept enough. I'm better when it comes to either two things. One, I know it really well because I've just been doing it for many years, or have partaken in it, or I've taken lots of actions, or it relates to something to me personally. Like if it's to you an example, you can share it really easily. So perhaps in that example, being able to reflect it back to you or something, or like if I was explaining it to me, that would be probably an easier way for me to show the example of like, okay, well, the book said this and this is how it applies to me, so I'm going to retell it in that method. But I agree, like retelling it based on how the book might have presented it, I struggle sometimes. I often find that with even how I do my book reviews. Like say at the moment I'm rereading Man's Search for Meaning, which I reread every year around my birthday. And this is the third time I'm reading it, or maybe third time I'm reading it. And even still now, reading it through, I still would struggle to try to synthesize exactly what is being presented in that book without some formal shape of putting a little bit of me behind that thought of, here's the example that's being presented in Man's Search for Meaning, and the three phases that they go through, and perhaps I might have to try to compare it to me in an example where that's happened, or an example of history, or something where I can kind of relate to. I often struggle with that ethereal concept and trying to explain it on its own without like a reference point. So I know I'm going to have this trouble with the deer in the headlights type of feeling when it comes to Web3. Like I can already, even in my mind, I've been thinking about this now for a couple of weeks. My first piece of thing I want to do about Web3. Now I've written about it. I have enough of a concept, I guess, or a grasp on what I want to talk about, but still, to try to summarize it in like a 10-15 minute little chat that I want to put together, just like me, myself, and I talking about it, I go, man, I feel like I could just rabble on and just talk about random stuff without being really clear on this is what I believe it is, or this is the concept that it is. It's a struggle. I think it's a struggle.
What are you calling that again?
MMW3.
World
War 3. But no, I'm going to call it Mere Mortals Web 3. I think I've already made the design for it, the iconography. So it's going to be MM Web 3.
All right, look out for that.
Look out for that. That'll probably begin. I'll probably say that it'll formally come out at the end of August. Like that'll be the first one. I think it's probably going to be monthly, but those sort of sessions will come out, and I think that'll be a lot of parts. One, parts of me learning about Web 3 and trying to reshare that in a more simplistic way, in a mere mortal way. But two, I think a practice in exactly this, because it's a struggle I find to get information and really maybe that transition of moving it to knowledge, and knowledge as being, something that I can educate other people with, is hard. That's a hard piece to do. That's a really hard piece to do. Even more hard to remove the bias of yourself away from it. Now that's a tough thing. I think the removal of bias from trying to share something, I suck at really hard, and I've got to work extremely hard to do so. And I've been getting better over the years, but man, do I suck at it.
I'm a terrible teacher, man. I just don't know what. So it's a combination of sort of like feeling uncomfortable telling people things, which I've repeated tons of times. Sort of that unwarranted advice, even though they might be searching for it. But also, being able to put myself in their shoes and sort of see what they're going through. Because every time there's, I was just at the park today, 2-3 different groups of people were doing handstands. One dude asked me for advice, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. Just use the wall for 3, I could say use the wall for exactly 6 months, then use it again this many times, do this much hours, and this is how eventually, if you do 5 years of work, you'll get to exactly where I'm at. And then from then on, I don't know.
Well, it's the exact same thing that happened to me at the gym when I got asked the same thing. And what do you think I said? I was like, I just go up on I just try handstands and that's it. Like, I'm not particularly doing anything. Now, little hint, handstands coming back into my annual goals for next year. Interestingly, in a different way. So it'll be a pretty fun. It's a funner way, I believe, not in seconds, but in a different way. You'll see.
Yeah.
But again, I struggle. I think it's the eternal struggle to remove your bias from whenever you're sharing something. Because in this, let's now take Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or Web3. There's a bias in that we've now been in it for an extended period of time beyond most people. And so to remove that experience and remember what people are like when it's absolutely brand new is hard. It's hard to put yourself back in that position and just retelling in the example of handstands. If you said to someone well, I did this for 7 months and I can show you the details. There's goodness in that, and yes, that's information, but it doesn't truly apply to another person so directly. You almost have to tell them hey, this is what I did, but you have to just go and take action for this many amount of months and just see how it works out for you, and then work it out as you go. Here's some basic principles, but Christ, I can't really tell you exactly how to get to how I did it. In that example that I was doing a sort of a split leg handstands with bent arms, right? And they were like, well, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know enough of like the technique to know like exactly what I'm doing. I basically end up saying, look, if you've got really strong triceps, you can do this.
Yeah.
This is all triceps. I was like, normal handstands?
I'm all triceps.
I was like, normal handstands? You want to, like, your core, your shoulders should be, like pushing through. You have tight, like, legs and pointing your toes. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, all arms is doing this handstand. So I'm like, I'm not even doing the handstand. But if you want to do it like this, that's probably what you need to do.
Yeah.
But besides that, I'm like, dude, I don't know how else I could really try to explain this to you.
You want another funny gym handstand story?
Yeah, okay.
So there's one from yesterday, I believe. So in the gym that I go to in Good Life, there's this little outdoor section. It's got this fake grass, AstroTurf, 6 squat racks, and just a nice like little sunshade as well. So it's probably, I don't know, what do you reckon, 5 by 30 meters long?
Something like that.
About that. Anyway, I was out there on my own, hour until the staffed hours finished, and it was they were gonna lock the area.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing this the not fun stuff, hip flexor work, abs. Ugh. I'm not a fan of them.
No.
Go check out the Becoming World Class episode last week, and you'll see. You'll understand. And anyway, it was 3 p.m. closes at 4 p.m. This girl comes out, and I see her walk out. But I was doing my thing, so I didn't particularly take notice or anything. Next time I turn and look over, she's whipped out a yoga mat, taken off her shoes. I'm like, hey.
Can't be taking off your shoes.
I'm impressed because I've, not many people take off their shoes. Not many people are as dangerous and courageous as I am.
Yeah, it takes courage.
It takes insane courage. So she's there, and then she's doing some yoga. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm already starting to like her.
Yep.
Then I see she goes up to a wall and kicks up into a handstand, and I'm like, yes, this person.
This is what I need.
So when she came down, I sort of just started chatting with her. She takes off her headphones, and I was like, how your handstands going? Yeah, then we talked about handstands for a little bit, and I could tell that she wasn't particularly maybe enjoying the conversation. She was playing with her headphones and stuff, and it became obvious after 2 minutes that she wanted to put them back on and
get back into it.
And get back into her workout. But I learnt like a little bit of information in that time as well. Like she said she'd just joined the gym. I was like, oh yeah, I only joined a month or two ago. Yeah. Blah blah blah. And I was going to leave it there. Wasn't going to bother chatting anymore. And there was no intention on my part, neither to make a friend nor to maybe have like a see her again sort of thing. It was just like, whatever, I'll chat.
Conversation for conversation, yep.
I had one last set to go, one round of things, so I did that. And then I was willing to just pack up my stuff and leave. But what do I see when I turn over and look at her again? She's chucked on her socks. Now, what was unique about her socks? Well, my brother was making fun of me the other week for this, which is that I go to the gym and I wear different socks. I wear different matching socks. Not many people do this one. Not many people. Hey, this guy over here. Show the camera. Show them. The people need to see.
So if you're seeing, I've got 2 different coloured socks as well.
Look at this. Not as brazen as me. He's got 2 different shades of grey.
Yeah, 2 different shades of grey, but you got 2 different colours.
Yeah.
Now, she had 2 different colours?
She had no. She was more along the lines of white and black socks, but you could tell they were different brands as well. Like there was different color, different amounts of whiteness and blackness. And so I went, oh, shit. All right, I'm gonna have to go chat with her again. So she was doing her thing. I had her headphones on, so I had to walk all the way, walk in front of her, sort of almost wave my hand in front of her face.
Yeah.
And then my opening line was, my reopening line was, I knew I had a kinship with you. We both got odd socks, and I'd especially putting on my socks just to go over to her to show that I also had odd socks.
The odd socks.
And I think she was weirded the fuck out. But
she would have been like, okay, this dude came up the first time. I was trying to put on my headphones, and I think he kind of got the point. And then he's come back around again and gone, you know what? I'm going to open up with odd socks. At that point, she would have thought, this dude must be from the Mere Mortals. Holy shit.
Yeah,
what an absolute twat.
What is wrong with it?
There you go. Kyrin's opening line.
She saw that previous episode from 205 where I was saying, I'm not normal. I'm a bit weird,
He was the proof in the pudding, the odd socks. Now tell me, how did that conversation then proceed after that?
Well, I could see she was weird, like, I kind of weirded out. She was like, the sort of nervous laugh. And then...
Thinking to herself how long she had left to live. She was like, well, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to get killed.
This could be it. At least I'm outside doing what I love. And then I think she'd mentioned she was a yoga teacher, and I was like, where do you teach yoga? So I might do some yoga in the, I hate doing... I also am at, like, this really sucky part of the middle split journey, which is getting that last bit, and any way I can convince or train myself without it feeling like it's just me, doing it in a group class sort of thing, that could be beneficial. So I was asking her about that. And yeah, we chatted for another minute or two, and then I properly left.
Yeah, you were like, okay.
Put my shoes on, put away my my mismatching socks, and
that's it.
Exited the gym.
I'm done for now.
That's that's the result of you heard the monthly goals. It wasn't part of my monthly goals to keep chatting with people, but I had to.
He continued. He had to.
You can't be parading odd socks around me and not
expect a conversation.
You're lucky I'm not trying to hit on you now, Juan. To be honest,
exactly.
If that's just a warning for anyone out there in Brisbane, or if you're just posting odd socks on the you got to be careful. You might see me creeping into your DMs.
You know what? Interestingly enough, it has been now probably 2 or 3 years that I've been wearing like longer socks, like socks with like colours.
Yeah, same
socks
here.
with like.
I think we've
designs.
talked about this multiple times.
We have, and I think I might have mentioned this back then or not. But I have had, I'm going to say, at least 10 comments of people saying something about my socks in some way, shape, or form. In the sense of, like, someone even said that they were distracted lifting because they were looking at my socks. And I was like, I think it was a pair of socks that had like crying faces on them, like a little crying face. Yeah. So, in whatever way, it is an interesting topic. It's like an interesting talking point. So, perhaps here's
next musing session, odd socks.
Yeah, here's learning for you, mere mortalites out there. If you want to get into a conversation, wear some odd socks.
Yeah, there you go.
You'll get engaged.
There you go.
Engaged in conversation. Maybe in a bad way, but at least you'll be engaged in conversation.
It'll be an interesting one.
Exactly. All right, I think we'll probably pause it there.
I've got one more. All right, are you ready to hear something wild?
Okay.
I've got a question for you. So, what's the craziest thing that one might copyright? So, just try and think of you've invented something, and it can be it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It can be sort of like an idea or something that's a mix between a system, perhaps. What's maybe one of the craziest things that you think you could try and copyright? Well, actually, I'm going to go with something I actually heard on the Dragon's Den, which is Shark Tank. Sorry, if you know what Shark Tank is, do you know that show? Yeah. So Dragon's Den is the British equivalent. And for people who don't know, Shark Tank or Dragon's Den is like a place where an entrepreneur will come in, present to 5 investors who are, people with lots of money, and they'll potentially give them money for a percentage of their company. Now, one guy came in, and I don't know the details, but he basically said that he had a copyright on the idea of doing boxed selling of items. So not the actual box itself that he had, all the items in it, but the concept of a boxed sell. Okay. So he was copywriting the concept of doing a box sell, and he got into like a bit of an argument with one of the guys, and I can't remember what his name is, but he was like, you can't do that. You cannot do this, la 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 la. Yeah. And then after they actually brought the copyright paper, and in fact he had the copyright office had granted him a copyright for the concept of doing boxed sales. Okay. So for all intents and purposes, if you went to go and do, and it's probably very specific, but if you were to do that, you would owe him royalties on the concept, not so much the product that you're selling. Yeah. And I think that's probably the crazy idea of copywriting a concept. So I'm going to say if you try to copyright a concept or a philosophy or something like that, I think that probably would be the wildest thing I could plausibly imagine that you can do. This reminds me of this story I heard of. Did you ever hear about some sort of standards body or some sort of group organized together, and they're like, okay, we're going to be the official designators of names for stars. So you can buy a star and you can name it whatever the hell you want. Oh, yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. Well, basically, this group had been around for, I think it was a while, and then, some smart ass, I think it was a Latino lady, if I had to guess, in the States. She she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna copyright the sun, lol," or like, "I'm gonna name the sun," and then no one had actually done it. You know, the most obvious star of all, no one had named the sun. So she got that, and then then she was trying to say that everyone owes her money because they're using energy from her star. So that wasn't actually what inspired this for me, but because you were talking about
there's
that.
Okay.
No, so I was watching a watching. Yeah, listening to a podcast of Tim Ferriss with let me get his name right here. Ding, ding, ding. Louis von Ahn.
Louis von Ahn, which is Duolingo's founder?
Co-founder. Yeah, I think there was two of them, yeah. So they did, and it wasn't the recent one, because I saw they did a recent one, and then they'd already talked about, they'd already done one before. Yes. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go check out the first one. And midway through that, he was talking about, and so the things that I came up for, like the craziest, maybe a blend of air, you know, a particular blend of nitrogen and oxygen in the air. Yeah. A technique for quiet sneezing. So, you know, you got, if you do this simple technique, you can sneeze quietly, things like that. But how about a language? And so people have copyrighted the language of Dothraki, which is from Game of Thrones.
What?
So
really?
The Duolingo, guys at that stage, I think probably more as a publicity stunt, were like, hey, what if we made it so that people could learn Game of Thrones in Duolingo? And now most other languages, no one has a copyright on English. No one has a copyright on Spanish. But apparently you can copyright a language if you invent it in that way. But I don't know. Anyway, I found it so bizarre that you could copyright a language.
That's odd.
And then also bizarre that the Game of Thrones people wouldn't take them up on this. Like, what would be the downside of people being able to get even deeper into your universe that you're creating? Like, there was no, from what I could see, there was no downside. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty wild.
That is
also his name, Louis von Ahn, is like the least Guatemalan name I've ever heard.
Yeah, I was like, dude, when I read that, I was like, this dude's from the Netherlands or something. But like Guatemala, like what the hell? Louis von Ahn. Finally, actually, I do want to bring this up just because you said the sun. Have you seen the latest photos from the James Webb Telescope?
Yeah, they look like the old ones.
Dude, they didn't. Well, the what is it? The eye does look. It's just a little bit more detail, but the.
Sorry, I haven't seen all of them. I've seen like 3 or 4.
Okay, I don't know if you saw the deep photo, like the main one that came out, which is basically like all this galaxies and whatnot, and then they've got
It's not that different.
I don't know if you've seen the one where it's like it zooms out to show you really like what piece of the sky it sits in and just how.
No, I haven't seen the zooming out.
So for those at home. I think looking at that deep photo, it looks similar to like the other deep photo, to be honest. You can see the galaxies a little bit clearer, I guess, and it's supposed to be theoretically like 10 billion light years ago type of deal. So it is at the edge of space, well, at the edge of what we can like possibly see based on when the Big Bang came around.
Edge of the past,
and if you think the Earth or the universe began in like 4,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, then I don't know, mere models, I don't know what to do with you. But
6,000, I think.
Yeah, 6,000. But in any case, you should go and check out the one where they zoom out, because just seeing a picture on its own, sometimes you miss the context or the boundaries of where it sits. And when you see the zoomed out version, like there was like a zoomed in to a zoomed out version, and it is astronomically, astronomically mind-blowing. It was just like, because I think Neil deGrasse and a couple of people said that piece of the sky or the piece of the universe that they show there is like if you hold a grain of sand out in front of you to the sky, and like it's that section. That's basically, and it's actually smaller than that. It's actually smaller than that where that thing is, and there's like 100 million billion galaxies or something like that, which is just absolutely like mind blowing. The size
numbers
of
so big you just don't.
It just escapes you. So, in any case, I just thought if mere mortal lights out there, I'm fascinated by space. So if you haven't checked that out, it's James Webb Telescope. Go check it out. Yep. I enjoy it at the very least.
Okay.
I've seen some people change their wallpapers on their phones to already some of the James Webb photos, which I go. But also, here's a little piece, if you guys don't know about this, and you might not know about this. If you ever see those photos and you go, holy damn, look at these colors and whatever. Newsflash folks, like none of that actually looks like that. What they actually do, it's actually mostly taken with infrared, for like light beams to actually get the, what do you want to call it, the pollution of the light coming back through the infrared channels, and then they alter that with other ones. So if you think that the Hubble telescope or James Webb telescope are like taking photos. No, they're not taking photos.
Yeah.
They're actually using rays, basically,
it's
infrared rays.
It's like that picture of the black hole. You remember that? That was being paraded for a while. It was like the first picture of a black hole.
Yep.
And it's like, well, is it a picture? Can you even call it that? It's a representation, of something.
Yeah. So
of some data that indicates there's a black hole there.
Yeah, there's a similar one that they've done with the black holes in the middle of the galaxy, of the solar system, which is like some humongous like black hole. But I guess what you're not seeing the black hole, you're seeing the energy and the light that's being spat out all around the area, and it's not even visible light. It's like the emissions of radio that's coming out of it in any case. So that's fascinating.
Some shit so bizarre we have no idea.
The other one, just in case anyone's actually interested, there's like newsflash for people. The discovery of 2 new quarks that came out of CERN from the Large Hadron Collider.
Okay.
So they've discovered another 2 completely different.
That's nice.
Like
how many are there?
So there's 6. And I don't remember the up, down, left, right, quirky and something else. Yeah. I don't know if you know about those. Different quarks.
I'm not vaguely aware of
quarks will make together to make gluons. No, hydrons. No, I don't know what it's called. What's that? Higgs boson? Bosons.
Okay.
Bosons. So they create bosons in different groupings, and those groupings create the electrons and protons. La 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 la.
Sexy.
So don't be listening to us for physics details, because I have no idea. I'm just very interested by it. Anyways, go check those out if you're at all interested in the immortal lights like I am. But I think that's it for meanderings.
Yeah,
I think that's it. We've talked quite a bit. How can the folks at home support us, Kyrin?
For sure. So this is a value for value podcast. So that essentially means that we create this free for you. You can consume it whenever, wherever you want, for free if you want. But we do put a lot of time, effort, energy into making this. And we definitely won't be able to do this forever without your support and continued support from some people. So what we ask, and we have had another request to support in a different way, and I shut it down. And I said, no, you have to do it this way. This was Nastia on the book reviews channel.
Yes.
And
I reply back to her comments.
I politely said, no, what we're trying to do it is with Bitcoin in this new way, which we think is more adequate, less middlemen, it's more direct to us, and we can, it just seems to work so much better. So the best way to do that, I would actually just recommend getting Fountain. Seems to be pulling ahead in terms of app terms, at least mobile apps.
Yeah.
In terms of usage, in terms of the
capabilities. Starting to look like the leader.
I've taken a leaf out of your book and hooked up to two friends, two people directly from the show. I even sent them some Bitcoin, some Lightning Bitcoin,
so they can play around with it.
Yeah. And so that would be the best way. If you want any advice, any help on that, please just let us know. I'm more than willing to spend some time.
You hear that, folks? Kyrin will send you a Bitcoin.
Shepherding you into the world of Bitcoin. I'm willing to do that for sure.
One full Bitcoin will be worth $2 by the time this place comes out.
Oh yeah.
In fact, it's actually been the opposite. It's been pumping. Ever since I told you to buy a couple of days ago, literally just jumped up since then.
Okay.
And you know what? I didn't even listen to what I said. I should have been buying then.
Do you ever?
I know, right? Do I ever? All right.
And in any case, the if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, check out my book review as well of the Bitcoin Standard, which is out now.
All right, folks, that's it. Immortal Lights, Juan out.
Kyrin out.
Peace. Good.
Yo.